Hi everyone, I'm Julie from the New Art Gallery Walsall. Thank you for joining me for this talk on Walsall's public art collections. What I love about these Art UK presentations is that each museum is so unique, their collections are unique, and they're all ingrained within the particular communities that they serve. So it's a real treat to get to explore these collections from up and down the country, which are all completely different. So I'm aware that there may be some of you from a bit further afield joining this evening. So just to start by giving you some context as to where we are and where this image is situated. So Walsall is a market town in the West Midlands. It has a current population of around 280,000 people. And it's not to be confused with the capital of Poland, though the local accent, which unfortunately I don't have, as you can tell maybe, it sometimes means that people do get it confused, as the pronunciation can sometimes be heard as Warsaw. So it's actually part of an area known as the Black Country in the UK, which was at the heart of Britain's Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. And it was so called the Black Country due to the high levels of air pollution because of all the factories that sprouted up at that time. And it's the leather industry in particular that made Walsall's name, and is what Walsall became known for. And famously, the late Queen Elizabeth's handbags were made in the town. As you will see if you go onto the gallery YouTube promotionals or videos, we are 20 minutes on the train from Birmingham New Street. And so very easy to get to. The gallery is just a short hop, literally a minute walk from the station. So do come and visit us, it's very easy. And it's a relatively new building, as you can see, get a glimpse of in this picture. And it's right next to the canal wharf. So previously, this whole area was actually wasteland, but is now, since the gallery sprouted, is now regenerated, and it's got a busy bar and restaurant area and a cinema, hotel, and a shopping complex and flats and things. So this has been developed since 2000. So the New Art Gallery was the first public building designed by the architects Curator St John, who also designed, then went on to design Nottingham Contemporary and the Damien Hirst Studio in London, which they won the Rebus Sterling Prize for. We opened at the turn of the millennium, and in fact, it was the Queen herself who opened the gallery formally in 2000. It's kind of the first of what was going to be an outcrop of new regional galleries from sort of the Baltic in the northeast to Hepworth and Wakefield and Towner in Eastbourne, these kind of new buildings when there was the funds in the early noughties. So we are a free public local authority gallery. We have a thriving education programme and host contemporary exhibitions from both local, national and international artists. And in fact, our exhibitions team is currently preparing for the install of a new large-scale solo exhibition by my fellow countrywoman, the sculptor Carla Black. So that's a bit about the context of the gallery and the town. Due to the ongoing funding cuts, I'm actually Department of One in terms of the collections, but with my work, I try to be very values-led, and I believe that art and culture should be available for everyone. And I aim for the publicly owned collections that I manage to try to be meaningful for as wide a range of people as possible and reflective and representative of contemporary society. So I take a people-centred approach in my work and enjoy working in co-productions with different groups whenever possible, so that the collections that I manage are seen as living and vibrant and relevant and relatable. So that's the context. And if I can get the next slide up. There we go. So this is the first slide then in the presentation, as we begin to discover why Esther is regarded as Walsall's Mona Lisa, the key question that I will be answering a bit later. But I'm going to start off just talking a little bit about the inception of Walsall's public art collection and show you some of the highlights, which you will find, of course, on Art UK, including this one to start off with to kick us off. So this is an oil painting, and it was actually one of the first to be catalogued as part of the original Art UK project when it was the Public Catalogue Foundation. So Walsall's permanent art collection was established in the town in 1892 by donations from some of the town's most wealthy citizens, and with the aspiration that it would educate and enlighten the townsfolk. Art collected at this time focused on Victorian moral values and sentimental portrayals of women, children and animals, as well as scenes of the local area. So in 1930, as part of the Thruston gift, Scheherazade was gifted to the borough. That's not very easy to say, Scheherazade. And this work was the first in our collection to be collected by a woman artist. So Sophie Anderson was a well-respected Victorian painter, but who subsequently fell into obscurity in the 20th century. This year is, in fact, as you'll see, the bicentenary of her birth. This painting of the famous character in Arabian Nights was voted one of the most popular in our People's Choice exhibition in 2017, which celebrated the 125th anniversary of Walsall's collection. Her work has recently undergone a reappraisal, and you can find research undertaken by Dr. Kate Nichols at the University of Birmingham on Art UK. And this was done as part of an amazing initiative called Midlands Art Papers, which links collections in the Midlands with academics' areas of expertise to produce new research and insights into under-researched aspects of our collections, which is very helpful for collections and local authority collections where, due to budget cuts there, we have a skeleton staff and research can't always be a top priority. So it has been amazingly helpful to us and also to Art UK for some great articles that you'll find on there. So moving on. The next work I wanted to highlight is a sculpture because that is actually an area that the gallery has become known for, and also, of course, is the most recent strand of work catalogued by Art UK in the last few years. This work was then the first sculpture to enter the collection in the 1950s. And it was also the first work which represented contemporary issues and struggles. Gordon Herricks taught at Walsall School of Art and was part of the vibrant artistic scene in Birmingham during the 30s to 50s. A memorial exhibition, he was friends with the surrealist painter John Melville, whose work also features in our collection. But he had his first solo exhibition in London, which took place in July 1953. But unfortunately, he prematurely passed away the night after the exhibition opened, extraordinarily, in his early 50s. So there was a memorial exhibition which took place later that year at Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery. And so this year marks the 70th anniversary of his death. So again, this is a bit of an unsung artist that I wanted to highlight to you and give some recognition to, as it's both anniversary and it was the first sculpture that Walsall collected. Moving on, so maybe now to a bit more of a cheery anniversary. And now we get to Esther and to answer the question about why Esther is regarded as Walsall's Mona Lisa. So in 1973, which is 50 years ago this year, Walsall was gifted the prestigious Garman Ryan collection by Kathleen Garman. 1901 to 1979 are her dates. And she had grown up locally in Wednesbury, near to Walsall, and wanted to give her collection to the Black country. She wanted to give something back to her home county, believing that it was important for culture to exist in the regions and outside of London, something that, of course, we advocate and uphold to today. Kathleen was the life partner of the renowned 20th century sculptor, American-British sculptor Jacob Epstein, 1880 to 1959. So the gallery is known for this collection, quite well known for this collection, and its large selection of bronze portrait busts made by Epstein, as well as works by his friends and family members, including people like Matthew Smith and Amadeo Modigliani and Lucian Freud. So the gift of this collection 50 years ago was the impetus for Walsall to then create a new art gallery to showcase it in. And that was something the council promised to Kathleen on its donation. Originally, the collections were shown above the library in the town as part of the displays of the then called Walsall Museum and Art Gallery. The new art gallery presents the Garman Ryan collection at its heart, and Caruso St John specially constructed the collection spaces at the heart of the gallery in floors 1 and 2, and reminiscent of a family home. So this sort of the Epstein-Garman family home where these works were originally on display. So we have 10 domestic-sized rooms, which each present work on a particular theme, as was Kathleen's intention for the collection. So it's our kind of USP of how we display our collections thematically rather than chronologically. The themes roughly connect with aspects of Epstein's work. For example, we have a trees room, which feature his paintings from the 1930s of Epping Forest. We have a figure study section that show depictions of his models, many of whom famously Epstein had affairs with. And we have an animals and birds room, which features a portrait bust of his beloved dog, for example, who was aptly called Frisky. The portrait room features this work, which Epstein regarded as his finest. He apparently said if he was to be judged by only one work, he wanted it to be this one, which, as someone who is famed for pushing boundaries and being at the forefront of the vorticist movement, may be surprising for some people. This work was actually selected to highlight the Art UK Sculpture Project and went on tour to a primary school in a deprived part of Birmingham with the Art UK Masterpiece on Tour programme. And an artist who works with us came along with me, and we led a workshop for the children, some of whom were profoundly deaf. And this was an absolutely amazing experience and initiative that we were really proud to be a part of. But I wanted to highlight this work due to family connections being really at the heart of the Garman Ryan collection. And it's this unique take on Epstein that we celebrate in Walsall, and how his work is positioned in the eyes really of his second wife, Kathleen, who donated her collection to us. So I would need several hours to explain probably just half the intricacies of all the relationships and family dynamics. And we have vast archives which delve into all the stories, but I'm just going to then highlight a couple here now to start off with Esther. So Esther was Kathleen and Jacob Epstein's youngest child, who was aged 15 at the time that she sat for this portrait. She was absolutely stunning, as you can see, very beautiful, and displayed alongside, we have archive photographs of her. The contemporary artist, Bob and Roberta Smith, became obsessed with this work while he was artist in residence at the gallery between 2009 and 2011. And it was he who declared it Walsall's Mona Lisa, but without the enigmatic smile. Bob's daughter was around the same age as Esther was when she sat for this portrait around the time of Bob's residency. And I think that's what connected him with it, and he had affinity with it, as he had a 15-year-old at the same time. And he created an archive gallery within our collection spaces, which is still there today, and you can see, and uses photographs, letters, and other material that tell the tragic story of Esther and her brother Theo, as well as the tense family relationships which lie at the heart of the Garman Ryan collection. And he also produced his own artworks in response to the collection, like this one, moving on to a more contemporary piece of sculpture. So at first, this may seem completely unrelated to Epstein. Theo was, as it says here, Theodore Garman, and Theo was Kathleen and Jacob's eldest child. However, at the time of his birth, Jacob was married to his first wife, Margaret, and already had a daughter whom he was raising with her. Theo was therefore never openly acknowledged as being his son, despite the striking similarity, and so he took his mother's surname, as you can see. Jacob would go on to have 5 children in total, and Theo was the only one of his children that he didn't create a portrait bust of. So while artists in residence, Bob and Roberta Smith, wanted to rectify this and to produce a sculpture of Theo to make up for this. So although it seems very different to those by Epstein, like Esther that we saw before, Bob, in fact, did use a similar practice to Epstein, as Epstein used with clay, building up on an armature, but instead of building with clay, Bob used wood and other found objects from the canal outside to create his representation of Theo. Theo was someone who lived with mental illness throughout his life, and so this frenetic representation shows his disjointed and chaotic mental state, and also incorporates quotes from his letters in the archives and photos of him with his beloved younger sister, Esther. Theo died tragically at the age of only 29 in 1954 of a heart attack when he was being transported to a psychiatric unit. His heartbroken sister Esther died by suicide later the same year, aged 25. Kitty Garman was their middle child and the only one of Kathleen Garman and Jacob Epstein's children who survived into old age. We're in regular touch with her descendants regarding the collection and its legacy. Kitty was famously the first wife of Lucian Freud, and this is one of the most famous and popular works in our collection, created while the pair were on honeymoon in France in the late 1940s. Both Kitty and Freud passed away the same year in 2011, but up until this time, Kitty was a great supporter of the gallery and a regular visitor, and in fact had an exhibition of her own work at the gallery in 2004. Local artist Andrew Tift won the BP Portrait Prize in 2006 for drawing and painting her, inspired by this Freud work that she had grown up with visiting at the Old Art Gallery. These works are all now part of our collections. We also have a work by Kitty herself, a watercolour still life, and by her granddaughter, May Cornet, as well. So continuing to collect work by subsequent generations of the Garman family. The focus of our Garman Ryan collection is usually on the Garmans and Epsteins, but the co-founder and the Ryan component is often overlooked. Sally Ryan, here pictured, was a talented sculptor in her own right and someone I feel deserves to be explored and celebrated. And I wrote a bit about her in an article for Art UK and as part of the grand tour, which featured in The Guardian during the pandemic when collections were closed, unfortunately. Sally was an openly gay woman who wore her hair short, dressed in quite masculine tailoring, as you can see in this photo. She sometimes went by the name of Tim or Tammy and lived freely against the conventions of the times. She left her wealthy American background to pursue a career as an artist in Europe. The incredible La Martinique was exhibited at the Royal Academy when she first came to Britain, aged 18. And it was here in London that she became firm friends with Kathleen Garman and Jacob Epstein. Sally unfortunately had to give up sculpture and move more to painting when she developed throat cancer in the 1960s. here we can see a painting of Kathleen by Sally. At this time, after Jacob Epstein died in 1959, this was when she and Kathleen started to plan the formation of the Garman Ryan collection, which would then come to Walsall. And Sally had been aware of Kathleen's intention to donate it to the town. As Sally was the granddaughter of a wealthy tobacco tycoon, ironically, she was afforded many luxuries, including a Van Gogh, which hung in her suite at the Dorchester Hotel, which now is also in our collection. And we believe that many of the European masterpieces in the collection by the likes of Picasso and Monet are thought to have been bought by Sally and then were gifted to Kathleen in her will. There is scant documentation, but there is some documentation of works that we can pinpoint in the archives. But Kathleen wasn't necessarily a precise record keeper or anything. So what we can piece together, that's what we believe has happened. So the Garman Ryan collection was going to be their joint legacy. And Walsall is the only known public collection in the UK to contain work by Sally. We have sculptures, drawings and paintings numbering 28 in total. Though via Art UK, I interestingly did discover that there is a work in the collection of the BBC by Sally, a portrait bust of Val Gielgud, who was a pioneer of a radio drama for the BBC. And in fact, as recently as today, I have been in touch with the nephew of Sally's partner, who was the acclaimed Canadian pianist Ellen Ballon, who is also helping with further leads in terms of information on Sally's life and work. So do watch this space. Ellen Ballon's nephew is currently working on her biography. So it's been brilliant to get in touch with him and to hopefully find out more, because through writing the essay and things, that's what I've been trying to establish. So if anyone knows any links or connections, do get in touch. Sally has been inspiration for a recent collections project with our collections community panel. Here in Queer was made to celebrate and honour her work and tell stories about our collections from different perspectives. Historically, LGBTQ+ histories were often written out of public collections, and we wanted to show that queerness lies at the heart of the Garman Ryan collection and to ensure that her story is told and celebrated. So this is a current snapshot from our collection spaces, and we can see a portrait bust of Sally Ryan by Epstein on the left, alongside La Martinique, and a contemporary photographic collage work based on archival material of Sally that we have by contemporary artist Grace Williams. So post-pandemic, there was a recognised deficit in cultural activity for the LGBT community in the Black country. So our collections community panel was formed in 2021 initially to address this and to create the Here in Queer, Queering Our Collections project inspired by Sally. But obviously we're all not one label, and we found so many intersections across the panel. It's now grown across a range of different lived experiences, and we'll be continuing to explore different areas to show the continued relevance of our collections to contemporary life and reflect and represent the people of Walsall today. Moving on, a bit more about our contemporary collecting. So at the New Art Gallery, we have retained a commitment to contemporary collecting, and the collection, in fact, has tripled in size since 2000. We have often acquired work which has been exhibited in temporary exhibitions and has a focus on exploring contemporary British life, as well as work which pushes boundaries in relation to sculpture, building on Epstein's legacy. So I just want to end with a couple of these examples. First of all, a taxidermy sculpture by contemporary British artist Polly Morgan, again, which was catalogued as part of the sculpture project on Art UK. This was actually the first work I was involved in acquiring when I joined the gallery, actually 10 years ago this month. It was exhibited at the time as part of a group show called The Nature of the Beast. And I'd long been a fan of Polly's work and attended a taxi demonstration that she delivered as part of the events programme, and then was delighted that she allowed us to be the first public collection in the UK to collect her work. Myocardial infarction, or heart attack in other words, fits perfectly within the themes of the Garman Ryan collection in terms of savage relationships and heartbreak, and it makes a welcome addition to our animals and birds room alongside Frisky from time to time, and has become a popular contemporary favourite. The lovebirds here are generally thought of as all sweet and innocent, but in reality can be quite vicious, hence the heart attack of the title. We have two paintings in our collection by Eugene Palmer, a leading Black British artist. An essay features on Art UK about these works, explored again as part of the Midlands Art Papers project mentioned before. And this essay is by Gregory Salter from the University of Birmingham. Palmer's portraits of young Black women framed inside a round overture recalling a ship porthole can be seen as a nod to the transatlantic slave trade and Britain's colonial legacy, which is currently being explored in greater detail in many of our nation's collections at the moment. Palmer himself came with his family to Britain in the 1960s from Jamaica as part of the Windrush generation and settled in Birmingham. He would then go on to become a member of the Black British art movement, which was predominant in Britain in the 80s and 90s. And in fact, Keith Piper, another member of this group, we recently acquired a large-scale video installation by him as well. Our collections community panel is currently exploring notions of class and race as part of the next iteration of our Embedding Diversity project this year, and his work will feature in this. Bringing it right up to date, we retain a commitment to exploring contemporary issues, believing that museums should not be neutral, and recently acquired in 2021 through savings that we made being closed for most of our 20th anniversary year in 2020, unfortunately. But we were able to acquire a collection of work produced by West Midlands-based artists, which responded to the extraordinary events of that year. And this collection was exhibited in its entirety in our ground floor community gallery for most of 2022 last year. So works in this collection discuss and look at topics from COVID-19 and the pandemic and lockdowns to Brexit and Black Lives Matter, class and climate change. So showing that our collections continue to explore the context, the contemporary context of migration and its repercussions across the world. The final work I've chosen from the collection is from the 2020 collection and is by Yasmin Aguila, and it's called Pardon the Miss, and it's her response as a mixed race British woman to the brutal murder of George Floyd. Yasmin is currently making work in response to the Eugene Palmers that I previously showed as part of our community panel and their responses to race and class, and these will be exhibited this summer following our annual collections redisplay. So that's the last slide and the last work that I wanted to show you. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, and I hope you enjoyed the talk and found it interesting and informative. Let's just put this slide up now to highlight the next talk in this series by Art UK, which will be with the National Railway Museum. The details are now on the screen. So just thank you very much once again for joining us. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.